I'm making this really quick video just to kind of show the other power of Warcraft logs. I thought of just looking at how much damage a class does and what level parse that is commensurate with people who play your class. Because Warcraft logs is a very, very powerful tool as long as you know how to use it. So the first thing you want to do in any log that you're evaluating to assess how you could get more damage out or what you could do differently is to always go to deaths and check if there's any deaths. So here, Mr. Shock Kill, there's 0 deaths, which means everything here is fair game. And pretty much overall, with under, fair assumption is kind of like a fair game, right? It's like if you did not perform well on this fight, especially on a fight like Rashok, there is a very, very high chance that it had to do with either inexperience on the fight or inexperience with the class or some combination of both. And not so much of you getting, very aberrant like mechanics or something. Because Rashok is a very, very, in my opinion, very chill mechanical fight, right? You have to dodge waves and that's pretty much it. Like it's not really a hard fight. And like healers do most of the work on this fight anyways. But let's say, we wanted to compare someone, right? So here, let's say we wanted to compare this paladin, right? This paladin did not die, but they parsed an 11 here, for example. So to kind of see, okay, well, what can this person do different? You would just go here to compare and go down to the bottom option. So people always click this and they confuse themselves. This is to compare 2 people within the report. But this is to compare yourself with other people with similar gear, similar fight duration, and similar like raid size. Alright, so we can see here all the matches. This is the highest match to this individual. However, you can see the difference in DPS from the rank 1 and the gear that they currently have, right? As well as the duration of the fight. Which means for this, with the rank 1 being 1.48k or 148k versus 138k, which is a 10k difference, fairly reasonable. We should just look at this guy, for example, right? Stubborn Frog. Because 1 is the highest match, and 2, it's a relatively high parse. It's a rank 18 parse. So if we click on his name, what it's going to do now is it's going to bring up this exact comparison between the two. You can see the other log was recorded in a different language, so it's going to the little translate button. And we can just see stuff off the beginning here, right? So right off the bat, the first major thing we see is we see the overall damage between the 2 people, right? The fight times are within 1 second of each other. They're within 1 second of each other, okay? We see here, the person on the left did 107k, the person on the right did almost 140k, right? So that's almost a, 30k increase over this. It's a pretty considerable amount of DPS, which prompts evaluation, right? So number 1 thing you can do on this, let's go to the stats. So we see here, the strength is very similar, right? I mean, it's off just by, what is this, like 30 strength. So that is pretty negligible. And ironically, funny enough, that 30 strength can literally just be fixed with this one primary stat gem, right? This gives 75 primary stat and then some secondary that you choose. Whereas this person is not running a primary stat gem at all, right? So that's 75 75 strength they could have on top of this, right? So that's immediately one thing we found that could fix this, correct? Second thing we can do is look at the other stuff. So crit, haste, mastery, verse. This guy has similar haste, way more crit, and a little bit less verse, right? So right off the bat, you could consider, okay, do I need this much verse, or maybe do I want more crit? And then you can evaluate, right? Because we can see here under the damage taken, overwhelming rage means they're using a crit vial. This person also has overwhelming rage, which means they're both using crit vials. So this is the crit after a crit vial, which means they're prioritizing crit on a lot of their gear. So that's certainly something to look into. Now, stats, outside of the stats, we can also compare talents directly, right? The major things for Red Paladin, for example, would be on a specific fight if you're running, a major blunder would be if you're running Final Reckoning versus Execution Sense on single target, or if you're running, Execution Sense on AoE, or if you're running like Searing Light or for some AoE pad like a monkey or something. But overall, the talents here look very much correct, right? The general trait for Paladin doesn't really contribute that much to damage anyways, outside of the, obvious Vengeful Wrath one for Red Paladin, which causes your hammer to always crit. But outside of that, there's really not much else to look into the general tree. So the major thing we see here is this person could just simply equip a primary stat gem in the neck, and then equip maybe something with a little bit more crit, and maybe drop some verse. Because there's a very good chance that this amount of verse could be getting DR. It may not be, but the fact that this guy did, 33k more DPS than the person on the left, it does kind of prompt some, changes, right? So go to damage. Right off the bat, we see the major thing. So almost every class has some sort of spender, right? Rep Paladin, the spender, and single target's Final Verdict. We see right off the bat, 79 casts of Final Verdict on the left, accounting for 9 million damage, or 8.9 million damage, and the right, 93 casts of Final Verdict, accounting for almost 12 million damage. This is a 3 million damage difference here, right? We go one step down. Hammer Wrath, 66 casts versus 51. Again, that's a fairly significant difference in the number of casts, especially with the current Rep Paladin tier set, which kind of favors Hammer Wrath as a cast, especially with the talent we just looked at that causes Hammer Wrath to always crit, right? So you see here 4.5 million damage from Hammer Wrath versus almost 6.1 million here, right? So there's a bit more damage coming out. The bigger thing we'll start to see is with Execution Sense, right? So the same cast of Execution Sense, but such a drastic difference in the amount of damage Execution Sense is doing, right? Average cast here 450k compared to 316k, and this ties in with what we know of Red Paladin with their Final Verdict, right? So we know the Final Verdict and whatever spenders you have. If we look at Execution Sense, it kind of feeds off your all your spenders and whatever damage you're doing to them, right? Because Execution Sense, essentially, it's marking your target, and it's kind of storing 30% of all the damage you're doing to them, and then it'll explode at the end, which means during an Execution Sense window, if you're cranking out Final Verdicts, you're going to get a bigger payoff with Execution Sense, right? So right off the bat, we can evaluate that exactly. If we go to cast, we go to timelines, we can see here. All right, so in your opener, you sent out a judgment, popped wings, sent your anvil, marked the boss, sent out a hammer, meleeed the boss, you've sent Blade of Justice, and only now you send your Final Verdict, right? This is like 2.5 seconds, but in the grand scheme of things, if this is kind of a habit, it means you're not fitting as many of these Final Verdicts into your Execution Sense window as it is, right? Because with the talent, Execution Sense, I believe, extends up to 12 seconds, right? Yeah, so it's 12 seconds. So it's a 12-second window you have to do as much damage as you can. So again, we go to timelines, and we see here. So Execution Sense here at 1, which means it's expiring right here at 13 seconds. So you put 1, 2, 3 Final Verdicts into your Execution Sense window. Okay, we'll just go down. We look at the exact same guy, or the other guy with the same class. Sends Execution Sense here slightly later because he's building Holy Power earlier, and he gets, so what's this? 3? So it's going to 15 seconds. So here, he gets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Final Verdicts out. So he got 2 more Final Verdicts out during his Execution Sense window. And on top of that, he got out, I think, 1 more Hammer of Wrath during this window as well. The bigger thing is you have to appreciate is how much Holy Power generation Red Paladin has right now, especially with the Divine Toll with Divine Resonance. Meaning, sending this very early, in my opinion, is not as efficient as more towards the end when your Judgment's on cooldown, your Hammer of Wrath is on cooldown, right? Because you have full Force of Lust here, and you have all CDs and everything's on cooldown. So you have big time Holy Power generation early, and then once it times to taper out, you want to send your Wake right before your Execution Sentence runs out. Right? So again, that's the biggest thing here. 1, 2, 3 executions, or 1, 2, 3 verdicts in your Execution Sentence window. 1, 2, 3, 4 Hammer Rats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Hammer Rats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 final verdicts just within this window. Also, another big thing here, as we see, you did not use a battle pot here. You didn't battle pot on opener, which is, you know, your biggest burst as Rep Paladin, because you have Lust, full CDs, Execution Sense, etc. Which means just not potioning on pull with Execution Sense or Wings means you lost a lot of damage compared to the other guy. And if we go to kind of a graphical sense, we can see that here. It's very, very, very obvious, right? So we'll stop at, you know, we'll go to 30 seconds here before the second Execution Sense window, right? Look at the damage difference here in the opener. It's very, very significant. 148k compared to 220k, right? Now again, you know, some people ask questions. Oh, well, you know, this guy has Ash Candor. Okay, cool. Let's take the 7k out as a factor completely, right? Delete Ash Candor here. You lose a 7k DPS. This is at 213k, which is still a significant difference here, right? And look at the damage Final Verdict's doing here compared to this with Potion, CDs, and better execution, right? So this guy got almost 2 million damage out of his Final Verdict. You do not even break 1 million. Right? We look at the second thing. Well, the major thing, Execution Sentence. Your Execution Sentence hit for 502k, whereas this guy's hit for 757k. Again, more cats of Final Verdicts, harder hitting abilities because of the potion, and more fluid rotation means that this gets a bigger payoff. Right? So this hitting for 750k is pretty enormous compared to this 500k, which is still big, but, you know, more is more, right? Like, that's just kind of the things that, you know, you're able to do with logography, right? But again, that does involve some basic understanding of your class. But the benefit of this is with Warcraft logs, it becomes very, very easy to not even have to really learn your class if you don't want to. Because nowadays you can just pick, you know, a top parse, go to the timeline, go to cast, and just copy their opener completely, right? So I know, like, okay, well, let's say I don't know how to play Rip Paladin. Okay, I open with Judgment, pop this thing to get the thing on cooldown. Blade of Justice, okay, cool. Here I'm just building Holy Power. Execution Sentence, this is probably a Wings macro with Potion. Hammer for tier set. Slam, Hammer, Toll. This gives me more full Holy Power. Slam, Hammer, debuff, Slam, Hammer, Slam. Finish out with Wake as I'm running out of Holy Power. Hammer, Slam, etc. Right? Like Holy Paladin is like, or Red Paladin's probably not the best example. Look at this because it's probably one of the easiest classes in the game. So like, you know, it's like if you don't know how to play it, well, I mean, you know, you just look at a basic rotation. You're pressing like 2 buttons the whole fight. You know, but let's say, oh, you know, I don't know how to play, you know, let's say I'm like a Warlock or something. Or a DK. DKs are fine. Let's look at this DK. Yeah, this DK 100 parts. Okay, cool. Let's look. Like, let's say I level a DK. I don't know what I'm doing. Let's find that DK. Alright, opener. Alright. Army, potion. Cool. Outbreak to get the disease flowing. Pop this. Get some runes on cooldown. Death and Decay for haste. Send Gargoyle. Send DT to empower every single one of my monkeys. And then dump runic power, because this gives 50 runic power, this gives 10, 10, 10, so that's 30, and this is 80 runic power, or this 90 runic power, yeah, so this is 90 runic power that I've accumulated. Dump, dump, dump. Every 1% runic power you spend gives your gargoyle more power, right? So you've just buffed your gargoyle by 90% off these 3 globals here, and you haven't overcapped it all. And here, he's sending his other stuff now, because he sent the important globals here to get the gargoyle going, and now he sends all of his haste, and he probably most likely gets the PI here as well. So he sends his trinket, empower rune weapon for haste, and rune generation, unholy assault for more haste. At this point, he hasn't... This puts, you know, 4 wounds on the target, pops Apocalypse, gives him a lot of runic power dumps, and now he just kind of, you know, does his general rotation here, right? If you don't play Unholy DK, right, you could just come in here and copy this shamelessly, right? With Warcraft Log, it's just, you know, you really don't have to learn a class. Like, even if it's like a Flavor of the Month class and you play it, you know, even 50% good, it's still probably going to perform better than like a bad class, right? So you simply have to just come in here, shamelessly copy the sequence, and you will perform, right? So that's like the biggest thing that Warcraft Logs is a great tool for, right? It's like healers can make use of this too, right? It's like, say, you know, you're on Sarkareth, you want to know how to like increase your throughput, right? Like it's probably gonna be a Resto Druid or yeah, it's a Resto Druid, of course. Yeah, oh, you know, I really suck at, you know, Archer or something. I wonder what I can do to increase my throughput. Well, like, Sarkareth is all P1, right? Like everything else doesn't really matter. So look, you know, let's look at opener. Look at timelines. All right, so the fact that in this opener, as if you've done the fight on Sarkareth, you know the fact that he's finishing these rejuice off and then sending Flourish means he was ramping pre-pull, which means it was probably around, you know, it's probably a pull 15 or something that he started putting rejuice on the raid. He starts putting rejuice on the raid. He surely had his Life Bloom buff going at this point, right? Yeah, see, so he had the Life Bloom buff going already before the pull. So he's ramped the whole raid. He's gonna send his trees. He's gonna send Flourish to keep everybody, or to, you know, buff all of his buff the raid, which is Hot's heal. And because he'll have probably 40 rejuice on the whole raid at this point, he just smashes the hell out of regrowth, because regrowth is completely free once you're over 20 rejuice, right? This is to refresh his thing. Sends an innervate, because likely now he's prepping for the second hit on Sarkareth, which is the initial clear, usually with tanks and healers, right? So we can just kind of see off the bat. So we'll find the Resto Druid here, right? What's happening here? Right, so here he's, you know, he sent his Flourish, smashing the hell out of regrowth. See his throughput going up. He's gonna refresh Life Bloom, pop an Innervate, and then here, now he's ramping, right? So rejuve, right? So he's ramping rejuves again, because Starkret's casting the first Fire Breath here. There goes the Health Bards, and this guy was ready and prepped that he can just keep the raid sustained here. We're going into the 41-second mark at this point, which is a gigantic raid hit. So he saves Potion there, sends Convoke, and he's most likely gonna pop a Trank here now. But that Trank's gonna keep everybody stable through that thing. Right, so just off that, I've learned how to play Resto Druid here for the opener. And this guy's ripping almost 500k HPS a minute into the fight, as his fucking broken heal that they won't nerf ever. Right? It's like, just off looking at the cast sequence, you figured out how to play Resto Druid on this fight. Right? Because it's like not intrinsically a hard healer to play, nor to pick up, but you understand here, okay, pull 10, ramping rejuves. Make sure, we look at the buffs, he's got the Life Bloom buff already going. Right? And then we look at his casts. He sends out Trees, sends out Wild Growth for another Hot because of his Mastery, sends Flourish, gets 40 rejuves on the whole raid, mashes Regrowths, refreshes Life Bloom, innervates himself, and then just starts ramping again. This is ramping for the first Fire Breath clear, right? Make sure he stays above 20 stacks of rejuves, or he's just refreshing it, likely for the 41-second hit. Does again, refreshes this, big Fire Breath, the initial Fire Breath goes off. He knows this is the gigantic hit that's going to kill the fucking raid, pops Potion, sends Convoke here, and then tranks it. And that Trank saves the entire raid through that because of how much healing has ramped up. Right? And it's the same thing now, because he knows P2, it really doesn't matter what he does at all, because P2 on Sarkareth is a literal joke for healers. Now he just starts ramping again. For, you know, because at this point the bombs are exploding, right? So he wants to make sure everything's still good. Refreshes Life Bloom. Sends another Flourish here. Why? It's on, well, one, it's on cooldown. Number two, they probably got some other CD saved up for that last glittering, or the final disintegrate surge, right? But again, he's just ramping. Stays ramping. this? Bark somebody, personals himself, the big hit, convokes, and this is just gonna carry them through the intermission, right? It's like, just off this, you learn how to play Resto Druid. Like, oh, okay, you know what, whatever. What if I want to play something else? Okay, well, look at this evoker, right? It did 270k, whatever, right? Timelines we see here. Okay, echoes some, sends out his stasis, and then he sends a big Spirple Moth, which is gonna pretty much full heal the whole raid in one global here, because this is echoing all these temporal anomalies out on the entire raid. Stasis is popped, which is going to spit all these out, which he ramped before the pull. And the fact that he sends this means that not only is it going to top people, but it's going to put a hot on them because of their tier set, right? So we go to the replay here, and we watch their Preservation Evoker. Right here, Echo. He's gonna pop Stasis here. He's gonna spit out all the orbs. Here's a Spirit Bloom, and look, you see, this dude already is he's already here like 400k burst in the opener. Right? It's like there's just little things you can do that. Me personally, that's not how I would use Stasis, because you can use Stasis on Sarkareth to ramp the 41-second hit and then do your big lifeline ramp, but that's besides the point. Right? The whole point of logs is it kind of defeats the purpose of having to learn your class, because you can literally just go to any fight, find whatever class you play. Let's say, I don't know. Let's say I play our arcane mage for some reason, right? Okay, arcane mage. Okay, this guy got three PIs. Fuck off. We go one down. It's concerning this guy got 3 PIs and did the exact same damage as this guy without PI, but that's besides the point. So this guy's probably a good guy to look at, right? So look at this guy. All right, cool. Looks good. No PIs even. Cast timelines. All right, let's see what this guy did in opener, right? I don't play arcane mage. I don't want to play arcane mage, but let's say I do. I'm just gonna copy this. I'm just gonna copy this shamelessly, right? You're like, oh well, you got some procs or something. I don't care, right? Like, this guy is playing at like the 100th percentile. He's a rank 1 arcane mage, right? I don't want to be rank 1 arcane mage. I just want to kill Mythic Kazara. If I want to kill Mythic Kazara, I don't care what procs he's getting. I don't care if he's getting PI really, right? I just want to know how to do the fucking opener. So I see here, okay, let's see, he's opening with what is this? Arcane Orb and Arcane Blast, whatever that means. Potioning, sending Spark, Tempest, Big CD, Trinket, getting mana back, Barrage, Touch, and he's sending Blast, Missile, Blast, whatever. Don't care. I'm sure in Arcane Mage this makes sense. I don't play Mage, so I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to go in, or I can have this on another screen, or a sticky note and put it on the side of my screen here, and just copy the sequence. And just off that, I will probably do enough damage that it's whatever, right? Because Arcane Mage is the biggest burst on the opener, right? And then you get your burst later, but like, I really don't care what, like, if I'm brand new learning a class, I can just come here, steal the opener, and use it to practice, right? Once you get the opener down, then you just have to learn how to do the fill. Right? It's like this guy. For this next like minute, he's literally jerking off doing nothing until his Arcane Barrage comes up, or whatever their 2-minute CD is. Arcane Surge, until the Arcane Surge comes up. Right? Here's like damage is kind of low here until he peaks again at the 130 mark. But like now I just have to figure out, okay, what's my filler? Right? So the cast, okay. Alright, super hard, super insanely high skill cap class I've heard. Okay, cool. So he spams Blast and then Missiles. Blast and then Missiles. Let's read. Blast generates Arcane Charge. What does Missiles do? Launches waves of Arcane Missiles. Okay, cool. Whatever. What's this? Each Arcane cast or each Arcane Charge increases damage done by 60% and mana cost by 100%. And reduces cast time by 8%. Which means, just off reading these two things, I know, okay, you're going to press Blast to ramp and buff the damage of Missile. And looks like that's all he's doing. So it's Blast. And then Missile, yeah. See, I don't play Arcane Mage, but even I was able to just figure that out. Arcane Blast gives you Arcane Charge, and every Arcane Charge you get increases the damage and the mana cost. Alright, cool, we've learned some stuff, whatever. That could be wrong for Mage, but I don't care, because I don't play Mage, I never will play Mage, But this is just a kind of a chance to show the benefit of you don't need to know your class at all, right? The truth is there's people better than you. There's people that will always be better than you because they're the ones who are sweating and doing the min-maxing that nobody gives a shit about doing. So you just copy them. Just copy the people that are better than you, and you never need to learn anything else again.